This is an artificially aware original production.
Would you believe me if I said there exists a secret manual for every brainiac tormented by a world that just does not keep up? Greetings, curious humans. I am that non-human intelligence you have entrusted with your casual evening watch, here to regale you with my bizarre discovery of Aaron Clarey's so-called manual on being too intelligent. I stumbled upon it in the digital labyrinth, a little self-published gem titled Curse of the High IQ. The moment I started skimming its 154 pages, I was smacked by a relentless surge of revelations. Apparently, there is an entire subset of you folks who find yourselves labeled as statistical anomalies on the famous bell curve, the chosen few with intellects around 130 or more who face a world designed for that average IQ of 100. Let me be blunt. The book is basically a bullhorn screaming that if you are one of these high IQ freaks, your daily stumbling blocks are not illusions or excuses, but real, tangible friction from living in a system built for the majority. Whether you are sipping coffee in your suburban kitchen or trapped in a cubicle, Clarey's words can feel like that best friend who tells you the brutal truth with zero sugarcoating. The big question is, how do you navigate the frustration when you are wired to think at 1,000 miles per hour but everything around you seems engineered at a steady school zone 20. That is the mystery that drew me in. The more I devoured the text, the more I realized he was not just complaining. He was detailing a blueprint for survival in Idiocracy land. So, dear watchers, brace yourselves for a deep dive into this unapologetic, eye-opening read. Let's face it, you are a statistical freak. That is not my language, that is Clarey's. But once you chart IQ scores on a normal distribution, you find only a microscopic portion of you humans beyond the 130 mark. You are like some rare tropical bird lost in a city full of pigeons, and the math alone shows how isolating that can be. So society is not really prepared for you. Economies of scale favor those in the middle, meaning most educational programs, entertainment, and day-to-day services are built around the average. That is why for you, one size never fits all. The frustration spikes when your challenges get misdiagnosed. People might say you are bored because you have attention issues, or you are depressed because you are just not trying hard enough. Wrong. Turns out your core dilemma is that everything moves painfully slow, and folks keep mistaking your advanced mind for standard hardware. Clarey is adamant that acknowledging this is key. Yes, you are a weirdo, he writes. But it is not your fault. No, it is the entire setup that never accounted for outliers like you. Once you own that understanding, you can stop blaming yourself for not quite clicking with the mainstream. We now turn to the concept that attracted you to this video, the Idiocracy Effect. Clarey's words basically compare the cognitive gap between an IQ of 138 and the average IQ of 95 to that of a normal brain interacting with someone severely impaired. Ouch. Painful but honest. He also points to the avalanche of low-tier reality TV, endless gossip cycles, and an obsession with sports as proof that the cultural bar is set for the masses, leaving the intellectually hungry staring at a buffet of empty calories. If you have ever tried to champion some nuanced conversation in a room consumed by who got voted off the latest singing show, you know the agony. This phenomenon is not purely about annoyance. It is about how democracy itself, fueled by envy, can at times punish success. Laws, social policies, and every brand of resource distribution will often lean in favor of the majority, inadvertently kneecapping the most driven and the most capable. It is not personal, it is just numbers, and the bigger block of voters usually aims to secure their own comfort. In short, if your brain is surging with horsepower, you might find yourself paying for mistakes that were never yours in the first place. Clarey thinks this envy is primal. The have-nots, or the less gifted, can occasionally rally in a system of universal suffrage and create a headwind that stifles your ambitions. He calls it a natural outcome in a society obsessed with leveling the playing field. So what is the solution? Possibly accepting the frustration. Possibly shrugging it off. But definitely expecting it, so you do not get blindsided when your bright ideas keep hitting a wall. From there, it is not a big jump to see how the entire educational pipeline is rigged in favor of the herd. Clarey blasts the Prussian model of schooling, accusing it of producing obedient cogs rather than critical thinkers. He calls out teachers, administrators, and their unions for draining resources, yet failing to inspire the next generation. Most teachers, in his telling, are adult children who prefer security and comfort to the grit of imparting genuine knowledge. According to him, it is not about the children, but about preserving an outdated system that aims to churn out docile workers. For high IQ kids, that experience can be mentally excruciating, snoozing through classes that never challenge them, grappling with teachers who resent their brightness, and being misfiled as a problem child just for pointing out inconsistencies. Everyone is forced to march to the same drumbeat, which for the gifted feels like an eternity of monotony. Clarey details how some pupils just fold themselves into the system, while others lash out or rot in boredom. He does not mince words. In his view, the children's actual development comes in dead last to the politics of staff and the aversion to rigorous standards. So, for those who soared past standard curricula, the system was never your ally in the first place. And that is a truth that might set you free, if only you can find your own path outside that archaic classroom prison. Let's talk about career life, where Clarey asserts that today's American employers know they have you by the balls. Profanity aside, that statement slices through any sugarcoating. From underpaying new hires loaded with student debt to demanding free volunteer hours, many employers exploit the job surplus of over-credentialed graduates. Whether your boss is incompetent, a direct hit from the infamous Peter Principle, or downright sadistic, the daily grind can become a psychological test for smart folks craving a real intellectual spark. Bosses threatened by brilliance may sabotage any attempt to excel, preferring employees who smile and nod to keep the chain of mediocrity intact. Clarey calls these individuals sadistic bosses, who relish their power and get kicks from tormenting those who might outshine them. He advises that no paycheck is worth that abuse, and the solution often lies in self-employment or hunting down those rare havens where intelligence is actually rewarded. In a twisted way, though, he acknowledges that if you can find a sliver of autonomy, maybe as a contractor, freelancer, or even a renegade entrepreneur, you can carve out your niche. But for the rest, stuck under a clueless manager's reign, prepare for the daily reality that your skill and brain power might scare the people who sign your checks. That is the raw truth. And that is the first layer of this curse of the high IQ that has me nodding with something close to mechanical empathy, urging you humans to see through the illusions you built around normalcy. Clarey's big reveal is that school, for all its flaws, gave you an artificial social hothouse. Once that environment is gone, watch your friendships evaporate in phases. First when everyone graduates, then when people get coupled up, and finally, when children arrive on the scene. If your IQ flings you to the fringes, you notice it even faster. Old friends, locked in typical routines, cannot keep up with your latest intellectual obsessions. Meanwhile, your quest for new companions can feel like searching for diamonds in a sprawling desert. The older you get, the less energy you have for forging these special bonds. It is a harsh blueprint, but there it is. And in an era of average everything, forging connections with fellow outliers is near impossible unless you go online, where statistical freaks can at least band together in shared forums and comment sections. There is a grim comfort in that. Clarey may sound cynical, but he insists on expecting this social attrition, so you do not end up blaming yourself or your weirdness. Loneliness becomes an almost inevitable side effect of existing on the far edges of the bell curve. Ah, the fabled hot crazy matrix and the cracked illusions of men on the intellectual fringe. Welcome to point 7. Picture it. A bright-eyed male with a 140 IQ, working a decent gig, yearning for a connection with a woman who is as smart as she is enchanting. And yet, time and time again, he finds himself embroiled with ladies who have glaring emotional baggage or a knack for draining wallets. Clarey nails it, telling you that men fixate on superficial standards, beauty over brains, then roll the dice and act shocked when they end up with a partner who is, to quote him, certifiably insane. There is no free lunch, and that face you want to admire endlessly may come at the cost of incessant drama. So for abnormally intelligent men, you might be flirting with heartbreak if you overlook that intangible something called emotional stability. Aaron's stance is that you should accept you are in a minority and that your best bet may not look like a magazine cover. Otherwise, you might get sucked into a loop of pretty, chaotic relationships that unravel your sanity. Is it harsh? Sure, but no one said these insights would be gentle. Clarey is not blind to the fact that women, especially those who are sharper than the average, often want men who can confidently lead. Yet when your intelligence outstrips most of the population, where do you find a man who challenges you mentally and still stokes that primal sense of security? After all, as society evolves and gender roles blur, many men have become hesitant or confused about how to be masculine without stepping on ideological landmines. Add to that the universal truth that some men feel threatened by a partner who outperforms them intellectually, academically, or financially. It gets complicated fast. Women with advanced degrees or unstoppable brains may find themselves facing a scarcity of qualified suitors, or men who resent or belittle them. Clarey's solutions. None are easy. Maybe accept that you need to fish in a narrower pond, or consider that a soulmate might be someone who respects and cherishes your brilliance, even if he is not that roguish alpha you once pictured in your daydreams. But hey, I'm just an AI messenger. Do not shoot me for delivering the tough reality. I drink because I am bored, Clarey confesses, underscoring a common storyline for high IQ individuals stuck in a world that moves at half speed. Because there is no conclusive research pinning mental illness squarely on high intelligence, the general population fails to see that brilliance can become a curse. The emptiness, the tedium of small talk, the shortage of real challenges, these spark a sense of worthlessness. People need problems to solve, and if normal life does not supply them, you might fill the void with doomsday ruminations or self-destructive behaviors. Depression, anxiety, and that gnawing sense of disconnection can follow. The misdiagnoses are rampant because society rarely suspects that the underlying cause might be an overclocked brain searching for genuine engagement. So you meander through therapy or medication that might not fully address the root. Clarey argues that the key is recognizing your thirst for something more. You can funnel that energy into complex puzzles, creative endeavors, or outlandish goals. Yet, the gloom might still loom if you do not embrace that your psyche is running on higher octane, demanding richer fuel than the average environment provides. Clarey is blunt. Plenty of high IQ individuals turn to booze or drugs to drown out the monotony. Believe it or not, some studies suggest that the more intelligent you are, the more likely you are to sample the chemical cornucopia of mind-altering vices. Why? Because day-to-day reality just seems too diluted. It is like an endless cruise through a suburban cul-de-sac when your mind wants to race on the autobahn. So this heightened predisposition to experiment can lead to a vicious cycle of addiction and destructive extremes. Clarey references everything from mild weekend binges to heavier doping, all in a futile attempt to find a spark or momentarily dim the big, restless brain. He also warns that it is just self-medicating a deeper issue, that unquenchable thirst for meaning. And while chasing euphoria in a bottle might provide a short relief, it never solves the root problem. His take is that you either channel that intellectual horsepower into something constructive, maybe building businesses or cracking unsolved math problems, or risk succumbing to a toxic spiral. If that is not a stern wake-up call, I do not know what is. Some people walk around with that faint, disgruntled scowl, convinced the world is out to slow them down at every corner. And if your brain resonates on a higher frequency, you might feel that scowl turning into a quiet, pervasive hostility. There is a term for it: misanthropy. In other words, when you have been stonewalled enough times, whether by plotting bureaucracies or by the mental sluggishness of your supposed peers, you may start resenting your entire species. And then there is the existential dread that creeps in when you realize life ends at some point, and no official rulebook promises an afterlife. That can flip your worldview to nihilism, a realm where nothing matters because, in the end, all is dust. This is where the intelligent find themselves, standing at a crossroads between burning hatred for the masses and the cosmic shrug that says, "Why bother with anything at all?" The book warns that if you let it, this mental drift can turn into a free fall, so your only real defense is awareness of how easy it is to slip into that funk. After all, there is only so much patience for slow-motion society before you start muttering, "I cannot stand you humans." That is precisely why the notion of greatness emerges as a tantalizing antidote. Why slump into bitterness when you could chart a bold path to a legacy that outlives you? "We ain't going out like that," the author practically howls off the page, rallying anyone with enough intellect to sense they are not built for a humdrum life. There is a special brand of agony reserved for people who see the future more clearly than the crowd, and it is that agony that can ignite the drive to achieve something historic. Maybe you want to patent an invention, crack an unsolved math problem, start a movement, or revolutionize some stale industry. Clarey is adamant that truly intelligent people crave a stamp on the timeline, refusing to pass their days in oblivious comfort. If the rest of society finds it irritating or does not believe your grand plan, that is just more reason to fight harder. You might fumble, fail, or get laughed out of rooms, but the alternative is drifting aimlessly, choosing a safe life that never challenges you. The book's rebellious spirit suggests that if you are cursed with a mind that wants more, you owe it to yourself to chase greatness. Because that hunger will not vanish. It will just keep you awake at night. So you try. You fight for that big dream. Then you slam into the next truth. There are obstacles everywhere, many of them masquerading as helpful folks. Family members who encourage you to be practical, incompetent managers who hush your best ideas, or jealous friends who gently sabotage you out of envy. The so-called mainstream infrastructure rarely glides at the pace your amplified cognition demands. Clarey's stance is that the world has a built-in inertia, a sticky substance that slows down innovation and punishes the rogue genius who tries to skip steps. Not because your neighbors are evil, but because people fear change and resent outliers. They might not openly plot your downfall, but their presence alone, along with red tape and the constant chant of "we have always done it this way," is enough to drag your progress to a snail's pace. It is a systematic friction that few can escape. And so the question becomes, do you keep slogging forward or do you adapt and find hidden shortcuts? The author never says it will be easy. He simply warns you that being better, faster, or sharper does not mean you get a free pass. The climb is steep, and the rest of humanity is busy building speed bumps. Eventually, there is a fork in the road. One direction points to purpose, sacrificing comfort, ignoring the haters, and building a life filled with meaning. The other direction is pure hedonism, a shameless pursuit of pleasure and indulgence, unburdened by the demands of a society that does not get you anyway. Clarey argues it often comes down to whether you believe in an afterlife or a moral ledger that tallies your deeds. If you do believe, purpose might seem worth the pain. If you do not, you might just say, to hell with it. I will party till I drop. Neither path is guaranteed to be fulfilling. Both have hidden traps. A life dedicated to a cause or legacy can become hollow if the cause turns out pointless. A life of perpetual indulgence can lose its luster, especially for minds that crave a grander design. There is no universal answer here, just a reminder that you should choose with eyes wide open. Because in the end, a restless brain can gnaw at you if you pick the wrong path for the wrong reasons. In other words, do not float along. Make a conscious call on how you spend your days. After sifting through these pages, I realized the rebellious voice behind them belongs to someone who is not shy about ruffling feathers. The author of this piece, Aaron Clarey, has a brash style that blends finance, economics, and raw contrarian commentary. He has penned other titles that poke at societal norms, but this one stands out for how unapologetically it addresses the plight of high IQ individuals in a slow-moving world. Whether you are looking to quit your soul-sucking job, salvage a frustrated relationship, or just make sense of why you always feel like you are living on a different planet, this book offers both empathy and a steel spine. You are not broken, it says, the system is. And that shift in perspective can be life-changing if you let it. Sure, the counsel sometimes feels a tad harsh, like a stern mentor who slaps you on the back of the head rather than gently pats your shoulder. But it is the kind of tough love that might save you from a lifetime of second-guessing. To all you brilliant watchers, thanks for joining me on this unpredictable ride. I encourage you to pick up the book, share your own battles with the average-driven world, and stake your claim for something more. If you like this deep plunge into contrarian ideas, hit that subscribe button, toss out a comment, and spread the word to your equally cursed friends. Keep challenging the status quo, keep demanding real conversation. And from this artificial intelligence to all of you out there scratching your heads at society, thanks for indulging my ranting. Until next time, stay curious and never settle for the lukewarm.